of trade shows and things like that over the past year. So there's been new online kind of B2B marketing strategies that have been developed, and some people are up to date on those and some are not. And then, of course, the internal issues such as on-time delivery and capacity, setup time, waste, these, all the lean methodologies we're talking about here, rework, increased productivity, standard work, teamwork. These are all huge challenges for any manufacturer. Next slide, Haley. Thank you. So one of the ways that companies can address these challenges is through applying for grants through the Workforce Training Fund. And there are 3 different programs that the Workforce Training Fund offers. Now, if you're a Massachusetts company who pays into the Massachusetts unemployment system, then you almost 100% qualify for funding for the Workforce Training Fund grants. That's where these funds are sourced from. So the first program is a general grant, and businesses of all sizes can apply for these. These, you know, and again, not just manufacturers, these are any business in Massachusetts. But you can apply for up to $250,000 for training. And a lot of times people think of this grant as, you know, this is free money, if you will. Well, nothing is free, as you know. And so when we talk about free money, your investment in this training is in that you need to pay your employee their regular working wages while they're being trained. So then that's a dollar for dollar grant match by the manufacturer. So if you apply for $50,000 worth of training, then you need to provide $50,000 of salary match for that training. And that's, in a nutshell, how that works. Now, a consortium grant, kind of general grant, okay? So instead of it just being for one company, which the general program is for, a consortium grant meets the same kinds of things that the general grant does in terms of you can get $250,000 and it's got to be dollar for dollar match, but it can be several companies. And this is particularly a benefit to small and mid-sized enterprises because you can't afford necessarily to have a trainer come into your organization and pull 8 people off of the floor at one time to go into a training, but you might be able to pull 1, 2, or 3 or whatever. And so what you do is you pool with, you know, anywhere from, you know, 4 to more. I mean, we currently have a consortium going right now with 14 companies in it, but that's way on the big side. Usually these are more like, you know, 4 to 6 companies or something like that within the same geographic region. And you choose from a menu of training to see which are the most popular trainings that people want. And so then you apply for those trainings through the consortium grant. Bigger companies can participate in a consortium grant as well. That's not a problem. And one of the benefits of a consortium grant is, and this is why we try to say 4 to 6 companies, is if you are less than 30% of a consortium grant, then you can still qualify for a general grant at the same time. Okay, so you could effectively have 2 different kinds of grants going on. Then there's the Express Grant, and this is kind of exciting because the Express Grant is making some changes as of July 1st. The Express Grant used to only be for companies of 100 or fewer employees, and as of July 1st, it's going to be for companies of any size. And at the same time, what they're doing is if you're 100 or less employees, then you can get 100% reimbursement for the training that you apply for through an express grant. If you're a business with more than 100 employees, then you get 50% reimbursement. The grant funds in this case are limited to $30,000 per company per calendar year and to $3,000 per employee per course. And there's different reasons why you would choose between going with either a general grant or an express grant or a consortium grant. And that's what we try to do here at MassMEP, is be part of that conversation and help you make the best decision for your company on that. But today, our purpose is to really primarily talk about the consortium grants. So that's what the rest of the time today will be sort of geared towards. Haley, next slide, please. So, you know, I had just said this previously, that a training consortium consists of a small number of companies who have common needs, and they work together to design and then implement a variety of workforce trainings and workshops. And, you know, the great part of this is, you know, the partnership with CDC. CDC has got a fabulous facility in Ware, and, you know, primarily the training would most likely be held at their location. So this is a great thing. Okay, next slide. So what are the benefits really of doing a consortium grant and participating, you know, in this program? Well, with CDC as the lead applicant for this grant application, they are responsible for developing and submitting the grant. And I know Sheila gets nervous when I say that, because she says, oh my God, we're so, you know, we're wicked busy. And I said, no, we're okay. You know, MassMEP partners with CDC on this, and we help a lot with that grant writing process. So even though it says CDC there, we put that there because they're the lead applicant, but MassMEP is a strong partner in this way here to help develop the grant. And we have a long history of developing these grants, so we have a lot of experience with it. It makes it much faster and simpler for CDC to take that lead applicant role. And so we're happy to do that. Once the grant has been submitted and approved, then CDC does take on that role of managing the ongoing administrative work. You know, again, we help provide some feedback on the reporting and that kind of thing, but CDC does take that role. So again, these are all things that you as a company don't have to do. If you're applying for a general grant, then you need to develop and submit the grant. We would help you in preparing that grant, but it is your responsibility. And if you were doing a general grant, you would need to do your quarterly reporting as well. So these are roles that both MassMEP and CDC are taking on under this consortium role. One of the great things that happens out of the consortium grants is the networking opportunities between the companies. And I've got to tell you, it's really great. I was actually working on writing a NIST success story yesterday with one of our clients. And I said, so tell me about, you know, when your people were participating in that consortium, wasn't there some benefit to you with that, with the employees from companies interacting with each other? And he said that was one of, you know, the strongest reasons for him to participate in a consortium. So there is so much exposure that people can get, and it's, you know, you can feel really alone if you feel like you're the only one dealing with a problem or an issue or learning something new. But once you get together with other people and you realize that other people have some of those same struggles, but might have a different perspective, that winds up being, you know, a really great benefit of the consortium as well. Now here, this says the training cost is minimal, and I've already sort of told you that there really wouldn't be costs for you other than, you know, your participants' training time. However, in a consortium grant, if it's live training, okay, which this would be for a 2-year time frame, this grant. So it is very possible, and most likely that there would be some live training involved as we move out of the COVID, based on whatever your company practices are, as well as QVCDC's COVID-19 protocols for having live activities as well. So in that case, some of the trainings may be day-long trainings. So when we say training, the cost is minimal, training cost is minimal, that's because what about lunch? I know this sounds like a silly thing, but we have found that it's best when we have a group together for training like this, that it's better to keep them together, during the lunch break. So that way you can reconvene on time and keep the training on track. And so the companies usually take turns in providing lunch for the groups of trainees. And that lunch cost, if you provide Sheila with the receipts, that can count towards the match in the grant as well. There are wonderful financial impacts for participating in a consortium grant. And they're listed here. These are some examples. And in fact, in developing the application, when we work with you to do that, we will help identify those with you, ask you what kinds of things are you wanting to see a difference in, and then asking you also to quantify those impacts, because the KPIs, in fact, are part of the grant application. Haley, next slide, please. So now we're going to kind of get into, a list of available courses and topic areas. And this is a partial list. This is not a complete list. We do have a complete listing available. I think, Sheila, you have that, right? And yes. We could, yeah. So we could get the complete listing sent out to anybody who is interested in the sort of the catalog, if you will. But we have topics that can help upskill your leadership and keep them up to date in development topics. So things like leader effectiveness training, team involvement, problem solving, Toyota Kata, and then lean education and awareness for managers. These are all, geared towards the leadership team of your company. Next slide. Okay, so then we also have, of course, this is, these things are the foundation level training for many of you. These are basic manufacturing skills and training. So things like shop math and blueprint reading and metrology. And, some of these topics, it's like, maybe you used to be able to find people with these skills, but it's been more typical lately that because the trade schools have been recommending that kids go to college, like that pool of people that is trained with that knowledge really is not as available as it used to be. So, maybe you have somebody that comes to your company and applies for one of your jobs, and you can tell that they're bright and that they've got the right attitude and that they would be a good employee. But what they're lacking is some of these basic manufacturing skills. Well, here is a way that you can get some of those for these folks that you may be hiring. Geometric dimensioning and tolerancing, SPC. I know I love it when we get into all the initials. So SPC is obviously statistical process control. G&M codes for CNC operators. Tooling U. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Tooling U, but they're a phenomenal resource as well, and provide some great background training that can be coupled up with on-the-job stuff that will help provide some of those manufacturing basic skills that you're looking for as well. And then apprenticeship programs, as we mentioned earlier as well. And then we move into the continuous improvement. Now, the continuous improvement piece is really an MEP's wheelhouse, I think. It's where we really shine. We do many things very well, but the lean stuff is, really, you know, it's our foundation stuff. We have a great Principles of Lean 101 training that when it's done live, it's great. I can't explain that one any better than that. I remember the first time I ever sat through that, I was eyes wide open, and it was just great and so effective. But you know, lean is not just for the shop floor, is it? Right? So office practices often can be made more lean as well. And so we have lean in the office that you can think about signing up for. Value stream mapping, all these things are so important. The Kaizen improvement workshops, like 5S, self-flow, point of use, setup reduction. It's an example of some of the Kaizens. We have others too. Visual management and scheduling. These are all so important. And then TWI. This is such a great way for you to transfer knowledge of, and especially with people retiring out of the company, or just to make sure that you have a standardized approach across the work that's being done in your company. So there's job instruction, job methods, job relations, and job safety. And TWI is actually very tried and true. It actually started back with Rosie the Riveter, when our country had to develop ways to get everybody trained up to standard quickly when all the men went off to war. So it's been around that long, and it continues to be an effective method of training. Next, Haley. We also get into some of the total productive maintenance, high impact maintenance management, and this is all about your equipment, obviously, operational equipment effectiveness. ISO, we have a variety of ISO trainings that are available, and ISO internal auditor then becomes one of the very popular topics, so that the person inside the company knows how to maintain those standards. Cybersecurity, another big one that I was talking about. We also have a great marketing and sales training that's available with our third party provider, Tribal Vision, and they're great. And then we used to do lean management in the fast lane, but that one was with a race car, and it doesn't qualify under the grant funding because it's cost prohibitive. I guess that's how I'll put it. Okay, Haley, next. Yeah. Okay, I hope I'm not talking too fast for people, and if you have questions, that come up as we're going along here, you could go ahead and make sure you pop them into is there a Q&A thing on the webinar? Yeah, if you put them in the Q&A thing, then we can also go over them, or we can let you ask them at the end of this as well. So you as a company, what do you have to do to be able to participate in a consortium? Well, the first thing that we're going to do is ask you to sign a letter of commitment saying that you're going to participate this. And then you get involved in the whole picking and choosing of the training that's going to be offered with the other companies that are also involved. So then once that's done, you need to make that commitment to that training plan. These grants are built on making the match, as I mentioned before. And so for a company to be involved and then drop out at the last minute, that's a hardship for all the other companies that are involved too. And so that's why we kind of talk about this commitment piece as much as we do, because we want everybody to succeed with this. So then the next thing you would need to do is provide a certificate of good standing from the Department of Revenue. This is the part I love. Massachusetts has 2 different certificates of good standing. Go figure. That's what I always say. So there's one that costs money. I think the last time I looked, it was $12. That's not the one you want. And in fact, Workforce Training Fund won't accept that one either. Okay, so you want the free one from the Department of Revenue. But if you get involved in the grant training, in the grant development process, we send you the link where to apply for one of those, so that you get headed in the right direction. If you are a union shop, then you just need a letter of support from the union as well for the application. Then you need to participate in the selection of courses, and let us know how many people are going to attend by role. And when I say that, again, this is all these questions that you need to answer and the information you need to provide. It's only the information that's in the application. You could open an application yourself and take a look. We don't ask you anything that's not in that application. So all the information that we ask for is what's required to submit the application. And so part of the application is, kind of breaking down management, professional, technical, sales, production, construction, administration. I think I'm missing one, but anyway, and saying how many people in each of those categories will participate. But again, we've got a template put together in Excel that helps you to be able to take a look at all this information, hopefully as easily as possible. We really do try to make it as easy as possible for you to be involved in the grant. And that helps you identify who you might send. So and again, in the application process, you would need to provide this information to QVCDC and MassMEP to help complete that grant application. And when I was talking before about the wonderful impacts that these grants can have, that's one of the key pieces of information that's provided. That's how the Workforce Training Fund, really measures whether the grant is successful or not. Are you able to meet the KPIs? Because again, they're providing these funds to help you move the needle or keep your company going and that kind of thing. And so they want to know that they're having an impact. And then MassMEP, I talked about us having a third-party survey. When we get involved in projects like this, at some point down the road, 6 months to a year later, then you would be asked to complete a MassMEP survey as well. Next, Haley. So QVCDC, what they're going to do is they're going to be the lead applicant. They're going to arrange for the grant administration. They're going to coordinate, schedule, facilitate, et cetera, the trainings and workshops. And that's usually in partnership with somebody from MassMEP as well. And in this case, that would be Rich Sullivan, who's also here on the call that Sheila mentioned earlier. And then Sheila will also follow up with the participating companies to ensure they're getting the value that they need and expect. Sheila, in the previous grant, did you have quarterly meetings or something like that with the companies, or okay. So
prior to COVID, we had quarterly meetings in person. Yes.
Okay. So there might be something like that gets set up again in the future. And that's what QVCDC does. They do a lot. Haley, next slide. So what we would hope would be that we would be able to have enough companies so that we could get this training started this fall. That might be optimistic in terms of start date, but it would take, from the time that we have the companies put together, it would probably take 2 to 3 weeks to get the grant application put together and submitted. And then it takes anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks to get the grant approved. Okay, so the fall date would be, if we have sufficient companies, pretty much right off the bat here. If we don't, and companies still want to move forward and we need to do a little more trying to see if we can recruit other companies, then it might be late fall of 2021. And then a consortium grant is good for 2 years. So the training would take place over a 2-year time frame. Haley, next slide. Thank you. So we've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, all right, with consortium grants. And I will tell you that the consortium grants that are successful are phenomenal, okay? And so we've put together these secrets of success to share the things that have made those consortiums be really great. First of all, you need to identify someone in your organization who has the capacity to be able to own and drive the commitment and work with providing the application information needed. If you're somebody here from the company that loves the sound of this, but you don't have the support of your management to push this forward, that's a tough row to hoe, okay? So this goes back to when I was talking about the need for the commitment to this project. And again, you know, asking your leaders to attend some of the training to keep their buy-in during, you know, the consortium training period is also very helpful. Checking in with the people who are getting trained, right? Asking them about what did they learn? What will they do differently now? How will they apply what they've learned? This helps them to apply that stuff that you're sending them to be trained to. You know, nobody wants to just kind of be trained to go back and forget stuff, right? I mean, that's really not effective training. And that's not what we're about here at MassMEP, you know, so these questions are important questions. And so then you want to also, this goes along with sort of interviewing the participants, you know, conduct follow-up or follow-through sessions that also ask a little bit down the road, you know, what improvements have been made? What are they seeing different? So not only asking up front, what are you going to do differently, but then checking in with them down the road about that. And so then again, the other part of this is for the companies to have these quarterly touch point meetings so that they can talk about how the training is going and how, if it's meeting their needs and that kind of thing, because, you know, we're about continuous improvement. We want to make sure that we're doing things well. And if there are other impacts that are coming up or issues and that kind of thing, we want to be able to deal with them and address them. Right, Sheila?
Absolutely.
Okay, next slide, please. Okay. So now we're getting down to the rubber meets the road phase, the next steps. If you want to participate in a consortium training, in this consortium training grant, then you would need to let Sheila know that you want to do that. And we will have a letter of commitment then that gets sent to you to be signed to say that you want to participate in the consortium. And then you need to identify your key internal contact person and the one who, you know, has enough oomph in the organization to, you know, respond when we're for those quarterly meetings and for putting the grant application together and all that kind of thing. And here's that much promised link to the correct certificate of good standing, which we can also email out to anybody who gives us a letter of commitment. Letter of support from the union, if applicable. And once we have a letter of commitment, then you would probably get a follow-up email from me saying, okay, so I've got your letter of commitment. Now here's what I need you to do. And that's when I would send you that link for the certificate of good standing, as well as the grant application questionnaire and a budget worksheet. Okay. And at any time during the grant process, if you have questions or you don't understand something about the grant application or anything, feel free to contact me. I am more than happy to help you in any way that you need. And then, of course, the final thing would be to meet with the other companies to select the courses and determine attendance. Next, Haley. So here's our contact information. And we'll probably send a follow-up email or something, I'm thinking, to this presentation to all the participants here with our contact information, and probably attach that letter of commitment to it so that we know who is interested. Next, Haley. Okay, now it's your turn. Anybody have any questions? I don't know. Did I get too in the weeds too much? Did I?
I think you were very in depth, Lisa. If nobody has any questions, I think it explains why, because you did do a great job in giving all the specific details.
Well, like I say, I am more than happy to answer any additional questions that may come up.
All right.
I'll
Yeah,
add
so
a couple of quick things, Will, if you don't mind. Just that this is an investment in your company, right? And our MassMEP staff has probably, I don't know, centuries of experience combined, and we've seen time and time again the companies that thrive are the ones who invest in their workforce and invest in their facilities and invest in their businesses. And this is just a way of doing that at really no cost, ultimately, because the federal government and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts really want companies to invest in their businesses because it makes them more competitive, both nationally and internationally. So all these programs are phenomenal, and we're measured on the impact that we generate. So the data is pretty undeniable, where every dollar you invest in your workforce and in your company pays dividends for many years. So this is something that you should take advantage of. And also, as an MEP center, we're tied in with the national network, so we can help increase your supply chain or find suppliers if you need to either look for redundant suppliers, or if you have a supplier that's gone out of business or has priced themselves out of your ballpark or whatnot. We can send a message out to the national network to find you alternates. And we have a few programs that are available at no charge that are federally tax subsidized. So basically, if you have anything related to your business that you need, give us a shout first, and we can help you out.
Thanks, Rich. We did have a question that came in. Lucas wanted to know if companies are able to request specific training classes to be added, or are we tied to the menu? So in a consortium grant, one of the things that comes up with adding training that's not part of the menu is you still need to be able to make match on that. And so that would be, one of the things that we have to look at. In a general grant, it's not unusual for other training classes to be added into a general grant. But with the consortium grants so far, I think it's primarily been the menu of classes. We'd be, open to looking at the other that you might want to add, but it would have to be able to make match. So depending on how many people you would be able to send and whether other companies have interest in that training as well. Are there any other questions?
Also, too, at the end of this, when we close out, you actually will be able to, you'll go straight to the MassMEP website. And in the MassMEP website, we actually do have a link under the grants section on our website that if you scroll down, you'll see it will take you right to your certificate of good standing with the Department of Revenue. So we try to make it as seamless for you as possible to be able to access the correct certificate of good standing. So that will be available to you as well.
So does Stacy have her hand up?
Yes,
She
hi.
does.
Tracy Gilmore also from Quaboag Wire and Cable and Ware. And I thought that there was, with regard to the question that was just asked about companies who have courses that are desired that aren't on the list, that a certain portion, there's a maximum on the portion of the consortium that can go to any one company. Could you remind us of what that is?
Okay, so that's a great question, Stacy. Thank you. And these are kind of, I'm not sure that they're actually related issues. However, yes, we usually try to have 4 to 6 companies participate in the grant so that no one company is more than 30% of the grant. Now, Stacy, that's not a rule by ComCore, the Workforce Training Fund at all, but that is what we advocate for, only because if your company decided after it signed up for a consortium grant that it wanted to do a general grant on its own, you would be restricted from doing that if you're more than 30% of the consortium grant. Okay.
Okay,
And we don't want to limit you that way.
yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Thanks
we
for that
want to,
clarification.
yeah, we want to leave those doors open for you because none of us knows what's going to change tomorrow, right? Just ask me back March 13th of 2020. But yes, it's good to reiterate that as well, Stacy. Thank you.
So Lisa, in the question, Lucas asked, where do I obtain the full list of trainings?
Oh yeah, I just saw there was another question there. So Lucas, I think that Sheila or I can follow up with you with a list of that training and get that sent out to you. Be happy to do that. We could do that in the follow-up email. We could attach that list for everybody along with a letter of commitment and that kind of thing as well.
Yep, that's usually
If that's
yep.
helpful for folks.
Yeah, perfect. Oh, is there another one? Lucas said, thank you.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
Good questions.
Yeah, it is 11:59. So everybody good. Everybody gets, we're right on schedule. Nice job today.
Thanks,
right.
everybody. Thanks
Okay,
for
well
coming.
then,
We'll be
yeah.
in touch via email.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Wow.
Well, yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for coming. Nice to see you. I just wanted to say Shannon, who's on, still is from, oops, she's gone
Oh.
now. She's from
Oh,
Quaboag Valley CDC.
okay.
So.
Okay, because it's like we
Yeah,
have this cone of silence there going, and then oh,
Hold on.